Once upon a time, in a grand kingdom surrounded by forests and rivers, there lived a powerful yet impulsive king named Odiran. Known for his short temper and sharp judgment, Odiran ruled his land with firm hands. But at his side stood a minister named Ravan, a man of quiet wisdom and endless patience. Ravan had a habit of saying, "Whatever happens, happens for good," a phrase he repeated so often that many people in the court began to roll their eyes whenever he spoke. One warm afternoon, while the king was admiring his sword collection, a sudden slip caused the sharp blade to fall straight onto his foot. Blood dripped onto the polished floor. One of his toes was severed. The palace doctors rushed in, and although they managed to stop the bleeding, the king was left in pain and fury. Ravan, standing beside him, simply said, "Whatever happens, happens for good." The king's eyes flared with rage. "Good? How can losing a toe be good?" he shouted. Without a second thought, he ordered Ravan to be thrown into the palace jail. Ravan, still calm, walked with the guards toward the cell and turned once to say, "Even this, my king, is for the good." 2 months passed. Odiran's foot healed, though he now walked with a slight limp. Restless and needing a distraction, he decided to go hunting. He gathered his guards and horses and set out into the dense forest. The thrill of the chase led him far from his men as he pursued a swift deer. But in his excitement, he lost his path and found himself alone, deep within unfamiliar woods. As he tried to retrace his steps, a group of forest tribesmen surrounded him. They didn't recognize him as king. Their faces were painted, and their voices rose in celebration. Unbeknownst to Odiran, they were preparing for a sacrificial ritual and had been seeking a human offering for weeks. He begged for his life, but they couldn't understand his language. They dressed him in ceremonial robes, placed flower garlands around his neck, and began to beat their drums louder and louder. Just as the high priest raised the ceremonial blade, he noticed something strange. The king's foot was missing a toe. He shouted something in their tongue, and the drums fell silent. A murmur passed through the crowd. The priest declared that the king could not be sacrificed. He was incomplete. The deity would be angered by an imperfect offering. They let the king go. Odiran ran, limped, and stumbled until he finally found his guards. They returned to the palace, and as he sat catching his breath, he thought of Ravan. "He was right all along," the king murmured. "If I hadn't lost that toe, I would be dead." Without delay, he ordered Ravan's release and restoration as chief minister. When Ravan appeared before him, still calm as ever, Odiran said, "You were right. Losing my toe saved my life. But you were in jail for 2 whole months. Surely that was bad for you." Ravan smiled and said, "My king, if I had not been in jail, I would have been with you on the hunt. They released you because you were incomplete. But me, I'm whole. I would have been sacrificed in your place." The king stared at him in silence. He finally laughed, not with mockery, but with wonder. For the first time he understood. The days went on, but Odiran never forgot the lesson. He started seeing the world differently. When crops failed due to a dry season and his people despaired, he helped distribute food from the palace granary and reminded them, "Perhaps this will teach us how to prepare better for next time." When his favorite horse fell ill, and he had to delay an important trip, he later found out that bandits had been planning to attack him on that very journey. Once again, Ravan's words rang true. As months passed, the king began meeting with Ravan more often, asking questions not only about politics but also about life. One day, Odiran asked, "How can you be so calm when bad things happen? Don't you feel pain, disappointment, fear?" Ravan nodded. "Of course I do. But I also know that life is too vast to judge by just one moment. Often, we only understand the meaning of things much later. But what if the pain is too great to bear in the moment? The king asked quietly. Then, said Raven, we bear it, and we wait. Sometimes, the purpose is revealed not in the next chapter, but many chapters ahead. That evening, the king wrote a decree to build schools across the kingdom. He wanted children to grow up not just with strength and strategy but with patience and perspective. He added a line to every classroom wall. Whatever happens, happens for good. Years passed. Adiran grew older, wiser. His limp remained, but he no longer cursed it. He often looked at his foot and smiled, knowing it had saved his life. When Raven finally passed away peacefully in his sleep, the king declared 7 days of mourning. At the end of the 7th day, the king visited Raven's favorite garden in the palace grounds. He sat alone under the fig tree where they had shared countless talks. My friend, he whispered, your words still guide me. And in the soft rustle of the leaves above, it was as if Raven replied, whatever happens, happens for good. Have you ever gone through something painful, only to realize later it saved you? Share your story in the comments. Like this video if it gave you a new perspective. Subscribe to AV-Flourish for more real, emotional English stories. Share this with someone who needs to hear. Trust the journey.